Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. Today we're going to look at how to play Salamanders using the Firestorm Assault force. So this detachment allows you to really lean into short range firepower because you get that +1 strength. And you've got two solid characters to use that can add a little bit more viability to your army. There's a couple of good combos to be had around it as well, which isn't too bad. Although losing the captain's free immolation protocols does hurt the army because at 2 CP it is slightly expensive now. But immolation protocols is still an awesome stratagem and can do work for you every game. So taking a look at the rules to use, the detachment rule comes in as a really solid option. You get assault to all your range weapons, and when you're within 12 inches you get +1 strength, so it gives you that little bit more mobility as well. When you get in nice and close, you're pumping up that strength and you're starting to hit a nice little threshold. Like with the Infernus Pyroblasters, that strength 6 means you're going to be wounding T3 bodies on 2s now, which is very nice. Looking at the enhancements, there's a couple that come across quite nicely. First one being the War Tempered Artifice. This gives the model 3+ to the strength for melee weapons, which is really good, especially if you put it on a Power Fist Gravis captain. Forged in Battle allows you to change a hit or save and throw to 6, so it obviously gives you a little bit more durability, or you're guaranteeing some of your hard hitting weapons are actually going to hit the target, which is very nice. And then there's Champion to Humanity, which is quite useful and it's quite cheap at 10 points, so if you do find yourself with a little bit spare, this is quite nice because it ignores all modifiers to rolls apart from save throws, so this is quite good for your flamers because they are generally 0 AP. So if you've got any of your 4+ saves, they are going to get +1 to the save, which isn't the best. So this just negates that and keeps them on that 4+, which is quite nice. Looking at the main stratagems that you're going to take use from, you've got the core stratagems, obviously, which are always good. You've got grenades, overwatch, and tank shock. They're always worth using and keeping in your back pocket. They have all been brought down a peg, grenades and tank shot that is, because they were a little bit too good, so they're not quite as consistent now and hard hitting, but they're still great value. Then we've got the Immolation Protocols. This grants devastating wounds to torrent weapons. It is a bit pricey at 2 CP and you can't use it for free anymore with the captain, but if you do use it with the captain, he will reduce it to 1 CP, so it's not too bad. You've got Crucible of Battle, which gives you +1 to wound when targeting the closest eligible target within 6 inches, which is quite nice, especially if you're going as your Oaths of Moment target with your 4 rerolls, or you've got torrent weapons. Having that +1 to wound is going to be a very nice option for you. Then we've got Armor of Contempt as standard. This reduces incoming AP by 1. And finally we have Burning Vengeance. What it allows you to do is when a transport is targeted, the occupants can get out and shoot as if it's their shooting phase and shoot at the unit that's targeted your transport. So it gives you a bit of out of phase shooting, which is always nice, especially when you might have already used Overwatch with this unit as well. So you're getting 3 turns worth of shooting in 1 with them, which is very nice to have. Looking at the leaders that you can lean into, the Captain in Gravis is a good option. He comes with plenty of Power Fist attacks, so he's half decent in melee. He halves incoming damage, and he does give you that -1 CP to strats use, so you will get some strats for free, or Immolation Protocols will be dropping down to 1 CP. You got your standard captain, so once per battle he can get +3 attacks and gains devastating wounds, which is quite nice. He also has the reduction in CP for strat being used each turn. Vulcan Hestan, he's got a really good option on him, which allows him to select a visible unit within 24 inches, and any torrent and melt weapons get to reroll their wound rolls when selecting this unit. He also has another ability, which is quite nice. You get to select an objective at the start of the game, and if Vulcan is in range of it, his objective control becomes 10, which is absolutely massive. And he gets the leadership 5+, as well as a feel no pain 4+. So that's all about getting him in a position where he can view the battlefield and target units that need to be targeted to get the best out of your torrent weapons, and holding down an objective with that massive objective control 10. There's Adrax Agatone, which isn't too bad either. He gives rerolls to wounds and melee, so it could be a good option with Blade Guard veterans if you want to take them. He also halves enemy objective control when he's within engagement range of them, which is quite nice to have as well. So you've got the Apothecary Biologist, so he grants lethal hits to range attacks, so it's quite good for your Gravis units. And then if the unit dies in melee, his objective control becomes 9, which is quite nice, which allows you to hold on to an objective if someone tries to flip it in melee. Looking at the core supporting units that you can lean into, you've got the Incursors, which are a great option and a bit undervalued, I think. They have an ability which they get to choose one unit that they've targeted this turn and successfully hit, and all of the units when targeting that unit get +1 to hit, which is very nice. It's going to put a lot of your army onto Ballistic Skill 2 essentially, which is great to have. He's essentially the Space Marines version of Markalites, which is a great option to have. They also come equipped with a Haywire Mine, so when an enemy unit is within 3 inches, you can roll a d6 on 2+, you do d3 mortal wounds. And if it's a vehicle, it's 2d3, so it's quite nice. They do also come with the Scouts keyword, so they get a pre-game move to really put them in a position where they can eye up the target that you want to give yourself that +1 to hit on. You've got the Lieutenant with the combi weapon, which is a great option. At the start of the game, he gets to select an objective, and anytime an enemy unit is within range of this objective, your army gets to reroll 1s to wound. Now you do have to bear in mind this is when he's on the battlefield, so you've got to make sure that he stays alive. He also comes with some good keywords. He comes with infiltrators, lone objectives who can't be targeted outside of 12 inches, and he has a once a game move where if anyone moves within 9 inches of him, he can make a normal move, which is very nice. There's the Storm Speeder Hellstrike, which I quite like the look of, especially for a lot of your flamer weapons that come with no AP. This is an option where once they've successfully hit a target, you can choose that target for all your other units targeting that unit will gain +1 AP. So it's going to put all your flamers onto 1 AP, which is very nice. You can use this just to target a unit that you just want to get that 1 AP on and then use the rest of the shots elsewhere to do further damage. Having that 1 AP on your flamer units is really going to ramp up the damage they can do. Although it must be said this cannot be used against monsters or vehicles, so it is mostly towards infantry. Then there's the Infiltrators. They get the 12-inch bubble to stop deep strikes, so they're useful for holding your home objective. They can infiltrate as well, so they're quite useful for holding a mid-board objective, especially if your opponent doesn't put many units on that section of the battlefield, so they can be relatively unmolested. They also have the Feel No Pain 6+, which is quite nice. Looking at the transports options, because a lot of the weapons in this army are quite short range and you want to get within those 12 inches for that +1 strength, and you have the assault keyword so you can get up and close and personal whenever you want, you really want to look at ways to get into that range as quickly as possible, and the transport options are starting to look more and more appealing due to their points value and what they bring to the table. So you really want to be targeting getting into that short range, getting an objective, and potentially using the Burn and Vengeance to return a lot of fire out of phase. So you can move up, shoot, and as soon as they return fire against you, you can get out the vehicle and shoot back again, which is a very nice option to have. There's the Land Raider. It's quite a good option. The standard variant, that is. It comes with a berth of 12. This gives you lots of anti-tank firepower. It does give you a little bit longer range because most of your weapons are short range, and that assault allows it to move around and get around much easier than it would for a different detachment. It also has the assault ramp, which is really good so it can move. Your unit can then get out and still be eligible to charge, so it can really set up first and second turn charges and really make your charge threat range a little bit more consistent than it would be for a different detachment. So you're not going to be leaning into those 8-9 inch charges. You're probably going to be more on the 4 to 7 inch charges, which are ones that you expect to make more often. The Impulsor had a little bit of a bump. You can now take another person, so they've got a berth of 7. It is a lighter transport, but it is quite cheap, and it comes with a lot of small arms firepower. You can either give it a little bit more small arms firepower, or that one anti-tank shot, or you can give it an invulnerable save as well. But what it comes with, which is very nice, is firing dex 6. So 6 of your men on board get to shoot their weapons when they're on board, which is quite nice. So you're not losing some of the shots like you would on the Land Raider. So this could be quite good for a 5-man furnace unit with 1 or 2 leaders attached. You've then got the Repulsor. This now has been upgraded to take 14. So this is a cheaper option than the Land Raider. It doesn't have the assault ramp, but it does have an ability to get back in if you're charged, which is quite nice. And it does have that 14 space, so you can take a maximum Gravis unit attached with a leader as well, which is quite nice. It has also had a points reduction, so it's at quite a nice range to take now as well. So people are really going to be looking at this unit because it's going to be quite beneficial. It's on the circular base as well, so it only pays that 2 inches for a pivot, so it can pivot as much as it wants throughout the game. Looking at the units that are really going to be scoring the points, the ones that are going to be focusing on victory points and making sure you win the game, because it is a point scoring game after all. So you really need to start focusing on exactly how you're going to score points with this force. It's not really a unit where you can sit there and punch the opposition in the face and take a punch back. You've got to really plan out how you're going to score your points. So first up, you've got Scouts. They've had a couple of point prices, but they're still relatively cheap for a 5-man unit. They come with Infiltrators, so they can set up in no man's land. They also have Scouts for a pre-game move, which is very nice. You do have to bear in mind that they might be targeted early on, so try and be a bit wise with your placement. You don't want an entire army just to shoot them off the board straight away, because you do want to be using these later in the game to try and score points. But one of the main options you do have with them is to move, block and zone out the middle of the board, to stop deep strikes coming in and really stop especially armies that are going to focus on melee getting into the guts of your army, the stuff you don't want touched, and doing damage on them. These guys can screen out, take the shots, and if they die, well, your more important stuff is going to be there anyway. You got the Assault Intercessors with jump packs. These are really cheap. They come with the deep strike, so they can come in anywhere outside of 9 inches of your opponents. They're fast and got fly as well, which is really nice. And they've got a good mortal wound ability, so they are quite a feared opponent at the moment. They have the ability for each model that's in engagement range, you roll a d6 on a 4+, you score a mortal wound. They also come with the 2 plasma pistols and potentially a power fist on the sergeant as well. So they do a decent amount of damage coming in, especially since they will have assault on those plasma pistols. So this is really good for helping you to clear off objectives. If you're charging in, you're going to do a fair bit of damage because you can shoot the plasma pistols. You've got all those melee attacks. You're also coming in with your 5 objective control, so you only need to kill a certain amount to score those points. And because they're so fast, they can bounce around the board, they can get to corners to do actions, they can easily get into the opponent's deployment zone. And if you do find that you have one section of the battlefield might collapse a little bit, these guys can quickly get over there to score things such as behind enemy lines, or target units that are almost dead just to try and make sure they wipe them off so you can score things like no prisoners. Heavy Intercessors might be quite a good option to have. They are quite cheap now. It's 100 points for 5. They're really durable with those 3 wounds and toughness 6, and they can hold objectives really well. And when it comes down to being 12 inches away, they're now going to have those strength 6 bolters, which is quite a nice break point to have. So again, your T3 bodies, they're going to be wounding them on 2 and it's -1 AP, so it's going to be a really good option to have. And there's a couple of different characters that can join them to get the best out of them as well. To add to the durability, they have an ability that adds 1 to their saving throw anytime they're targeted by a damage 1 weapon. So you can often be against opponents that are putting 0 AP and damage 1 weapons into you. You're going to be saving on 2s even when you're outside of cover, which is a very nice option to have. Looking at the parts of your army that are going to deal damage, because at the end of the day, you do need to kill opponents. You need to stop them from scoring points, and the easiest way is often to kill them. You also need to have a certain amount of threat as well, so your opponent just can't dictate exactly what's going on in the game, and they have to worry about what you're going to do. So one of the good options is the Infernus Squad. You get to utilize immolation protocols with them, and with a captain to reduce that cost. If you have a 10-man unit, that's 10d6 strength 6 attacks. And you will be automatically hitting, and then you got devastating wounds on top of that. Bear in mind, you do then have the option for reroll to wounds from Vulcan if you're taking him. If they're on a priority objective with your lieutenant, your reroll and wound rolls are 1. So there's lots of abilities to get the best out of these, especially if you've got the Hailstorm and you're getting that 1 AP, which is very nice. So for the ones that you're not pushing through on devastating wounds, you can have that AP to go along with it. There's also the option of running 1 squadron and a pulsar because you get the fire index 6. So you get to shoot whilst within the tank, which is very nice. It's also a really good overwatch option because you've got a substantial amount of small arms fire coming from the repulsor, as well as your 5d6 auto-hitting attacks, which is very nice. Because you've got the ability to reroll a lot of your wounds, it turns into quite a nice anti-tank weapon as well. You're on strength 6, so if you are targeting something that's toughness 12, you will be on your 6s to wound still, but if it is a toughness 10 or 11, you're going to be on your 5s, and re-rolling your 10d6 hits, re-rolling the wounds for those, you're going to get a lot of devastating wounds from this, as it's not capped at 6 like an awful lot of the other stratagems are. The aggressors are also a good option. They're not as good as the Boltstorm, especially outside of the Gladius, so you are paying the price for Boltstorm, but your Flamestorm ones are still a good option. They're still T6 and 3 wounds, and you've got all those flamer attacks. It is D6 plus 1 as well, which is quite nice. So you can run these as 3-man or 6-man. The captain's quite good for the rerolls to charge because you want to utilize their melee capability as well. And you'll be reducing a lot of their stratagem price as well. If you're going with aggressors, you do get that 1 CP immolation protocols as well. But if you're running both these and a furnace, well, it gives you a couple of different options where your opponent just can't focus fire on one unit to try and wipe out a danger. He's got to spread himself thinner to try and target multiple units to stop these devastating wounds going off. It's quite good if you utilize a Land Raider for an early game charge. You can almost guarantee a turn 1 charge. You can definitely guarantee a turn 2 charge. And if you get that off, you've got your 6d6 plus 6 attacks coming in at strength 5, and that's from your Flamestorm gauntlets. After then, you've also got your melee attacks, which is your 18 strength 8 minus 2 AP 2 damage attacks. So that's quite a lot of damage you can do coming in. And then if you've got the Gravis Captain, if you give him the plus 3 attacks, he then has 9 Power Fist attacks at weapon skill 2. That's including the Relic Fist. So that's a lot of damage you've got coming. You've got 27 strength 8 minus 2 damage attacks, which you really can't rub your nose at. That's a lot of damage here and can take out a lot of things in the game. Then there's always the Eradicators. They're a little bit pricier, around 55 points per model. And they're not as good as they were in 8th and 9th. But if you can get these guys within 12 inches, possibly using a transporter coming from reserves, you've then got strength 10 melt rifles, which is quite a nice breakpoint to have. So if you are going into any toughness 10 vehicles, or even your toughness 9, such as your gladiators, you're now wounding them on 3s and your toughness 10 on 4s. So it just gives you that a little bit more consistency out of them. As well as this, if they focus fire on a monster or a vehicle unit, you get to re-roll built in. So you get to re-roll a hit roll or a damage roll, which is very nice to have. You can also pair them up with a Biologus for lethal hits. And then there's the chance for the Forged in Battle, so you can change a hit or a save to 6. So you've got the option of extra durability or just making sure you're consistent and getting at least 1 shot on target. Depending on the terrain, you can also think about drafting in a Chaplain with a jump pack. They do have another mortal wound ability, so you can pair that up with the jump intercessors. So you can use one unit as just basically a death bomb where you can throw them forward, hit something hard, fire all your quite good pistols, get in there, do damage with your mortal wounds, probably finish them off in melee, and if your opponent can't bring any arms to bear against them, then you do it straight again. Off into another unit, drop in like a nuke, and you do that until they can take them out. Because it is a very worrying thing when you've got something that's got 2 mortal wound abilities coming in, and they're going to be averaging about 6 or 7 mortal wounds, as well as all the other attacks they can have. Looking at what strategy you should focus on with them, you really want to use a bit of the early game to compress space. You want to dictate the tempo of the game by restricting where your opponent can go. You want to keep it quite a mid-range. You don't want to get too close and personal, especially at the start of the game, because you want to use your advances to get into your short range for your +1 strength. You don't want to sit in the pocket and get tied up in melee, or they've got too many guns that they can bring to bear on you. Make sure that you're at your mid-range and you're using your movement to get in range, limit angles back at you, and take out the opponent's unit that you want to focus your fire on. Immolation protocols is a bit of a must. You can use this to really whittle down tough opponents. especially if you're focusing on your T12 units, ones with invulnerable saves. Pushing through them right away and getting these mortal wounds on them is going to be essential to taking them out, because it's quite hard to bring a lot of firepower to bear with Space Marines and target your really tough units. The army's durability is actually quite nice. You can have a fair amount of T6 bodies. You've also got transports coming in at either your T9, potentially your T12, which T12 transports are very nice and hard to shift. So you can sit these on objectives, score those points, and then you've got the different abilities to get out and shoot or get back into your tanks as well. So it makes it very difficult to focus on certain parts of your army. It's important, as before, not to be too aggressive in turn one. You don't want to leave yourself vulnerable to counter charges and get all tied up, because you want to be in a position where you're just out of range and you're darting in close to do the damage, and then using mainly line of sight to block your opponent's ability to really get back at you. You want to be more smart with how you angle your units to get your shots away. You really want to aim for a fair bit of early game pressure, and then you want to turn the mid game into a bit of a grind where you are trading a little bit but using your durability and your movement to not be focused by their opponents while scoring all those primary objectives. And then you want to use the late game where you've got that threat of your jump intercessors coming in, scoring all your late victory points. You've got some deep strike options. And you've also got your scouts that could have been moving around in the game as well, scoring those victory points and doing actions to make sure you're scoring your secondaries. So what tactics are you going to use throughout the game? Well, a good option is to push for the middle, take the middle objective with your transports. You get to utilize Overwatch with your fire deck, which is quite nice with those auto hits. You've also got that burning vengeance for your out of phase shooting. So if someone did move near this tank, you could shoot them with the tank, with the impulsor perhaps. And then if they shoot back at you, you can get out and shoot them again. And then it's your turn in the next round, so you can get 3 phases of shooting for this unit in one turn, which is quite nice to have. And because you've already got out, you can actually just jump back into the impulsor in your turn and use fire and deck all over again. Scouts should really look at doing a lot of screening early game. You don't really want them in a position where they're going to get shot a lot. You do want to put them there where they are going to move block, maybe take some charges, and really protect some of your more vital units. You want to keep enough of them around to score actions and be scoring your victory points late game. If you can, you want them on an objective where they can stay a little bit hidden, where they can hold on to it, whether they've been whittled down, it's just 1 or 2 men. You don't really want them out in the open. Land Raider and Aggressor combo can be quite nice because you can get a turn 1 or 2 charge off. The only problem is you can't have a leader with them, so they are on their own, but you do have the ability to really apply pressure and potentially take a home objective early on and make your opponent have to focus on their own deployment zone rather than coming out to try and take objectives and score secondaries. You want to really use these to perhaps change the tempo of the game and make your opponent really think about how they're going to move and tie them up as much as possible. Your jump intercessors is going to be a real key unit. They're going to keep your opponent from leaving their deployment zone if they do get first turn, because you do have the deep strike threat from them. They do have the mortal wound ability, 2 if you take them with the melee chaplain. So they do have an ability to really wreak a lot of havoc in the back line. If there's a lot of terrain, they can come in behind and set up later charges, and it's going to be hard for these guys to be targeted. And if you're not doing that, well, then you're completing actions, you're scoring secondaries, you're getting victory points, and they're really fast, so they can pop around for the late game and finish off some of your primary or secondary objectives. So they really got to think about zoning these guys out to stop you using them. And then you've got to look at using the fire index for the Inferno Squad early game. You want to keep these around as much as possible, so then you can pop them out late game and use your immolation protocols for your 1 CP rather than your 2. And you want to be targeting your tough targets with these to really try and wilt them down. You want really a turn 3 to be coming out and targeting something that's important and making sure they're dead. Mid-game, you've got the Eradicators potentially coming from reserves for transports. Once they're in range, and especially if they're going into vehicles or monsters, they've got a lot of rerolls built in, and you've got a lot of rerolls on the table as well. So they're going to be able to do a lot of damage to your toughness 9 and above units. And even if they're targeting something not quite as tough, being that strength 10, if they're targeting a Terminator, they're going to be wounding on 2s, which is quite a nice amount. You really want to utilize the Combi Lieutenant and the Cursors and the Storm Speeder for your rerolls of 1s to wound, your +1 to hit, and your +1 AP. If you think you can take your Oaths of Moment target efficiently without having to put any additional into it, then this is quite nice to have. Basically a de facto second Oaths of Moment. You've got a reroll to wound, you've got your +1 to hit, and your +1 AP, so you can target a tough opponent. But if you do have a really tough, say a toughness 12 opponent that's got like quite a good save, but maybe not a good invulnerable save, say they've got a save of 2+, you can really then target this and guarantee that it's dead with all these rerolls built in and your +1 to hits. That AP is going to be quite important sometimes in the game because we are lacking it in our small arms fire. You really want to focus on not spending too much CP on rerolls. There's a lot of built into the list, into the data sheets, into the characters. So you really want to be focusing on the stratagems that are going to score you points or do damage. Armor Contempt can be used, but there's a lot of durability there in the transports and the T6, so you want to steer away from it as much as possible. Immolation Protocols is something you really want to lean into, as well as, grenades and tank shock are still great to have. And Overwatch with firing deck is a really good option. Onto the list. Well, not a full list, but potentially what you should be looking at. So this all depends on your meta. It also depends on your style of play and what you actually own. There's not a one fit list for everyone. People have different styles, they have different tempos to play, and they just have different abilities with different units. Some people can't see some of the finesse in some units, and some people struggle to use the brute force units. So it's about choosing what works exactly for you. What we should be considering for your HQ choices, I think Vulcan's a great option because you get those full rerolls to wound for your torrent weapons if you're going to be leaning into them. Your Gravis Captain and your Captain are essential if you want to be having your cheap immolation protocols, and the Combi Lieutenant having that rerolls of 1s to hit is very nice to have on your priority objective. He also is quite fast with his infiltration and his ability to move that once per game. So he can whip around a little bit, especially with his lone operative, so he can't be targeted. He can be key sometimes late game to move on to objectives or score you things such as like engage or behind enemy lines. He can be a really good option. For your infantry, infiltrators are great at holding your home objective or even a mid objective because they have that 12-inch buffer zone. And cursors are great for that +1 to hit. Jumping intercessors should be in the list, as should scouts. You should have at least one unit of each of those really. It's enough said of how good they are. They're very cheap and they do a lot and score a lot of points for you. There's great value to be had in those units. For your elite infantry, you want to be focusing on Infernus, Aggressors, and Eradicators like any Salamander should. You might want to really heavily lean into one aspect of it, but all three are great options and you can mix and match. Just make sure you're taking a good amount of balance because you will need some of the heavy hitting from the Eradicators. For your vehicles, you do have the Land Raider, which is a great option. It doubles up as a transport and it does have a substantial amount of small arms firepower. You can swap it out. So you've then got a lot of your heavy hitting options such as your twin link las cannons. So if you're not taking your Eradicators, it's nice to have that heavier hitting option as well. And your Storm Speeder Hellstrike for the +1 AP is almost vital if you are going to lean into Infernus or Aggressors. Zero AP doesn't take you that far, but that -1 AP is quite nice to have. You're going to make people fail a lot of saves just by upping up that efficiency a little bit. And then transports, I think the Impulse is your best bet. It works really well with the Infernus. They're very cheap. They're tough. They've got a couple of good options you can upgrade them for, even if you just want to give them the invulnerability save. They have that new pivot rule, which is quite nice, and there's a couple of stratagems where you can get the best out of them, even if you're using tank shock. They're a really good option at the moment for their price point. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to see all future content. If you want to support the channel, consider a membership or popping along to Patreon. Check out these other videos, take it easy, I'll see you next time.